Hello, it's me again. So today I'm going to be talking about John MacArthur. Um, he had a blog post. The title is "The Injustice of Social Justice." Even the title itself, it's kind of like clickbait, like really just irks you. But here I'm going to talk about it, kind of share a little bit of his view, and then spruce it up a bit, share how I feel about it, what I think about it. John MacArthur, how he talks about it is it's a today thing. Um, one of his other blogs, he has a pretty interesting story about how he was traveling in another blog. Yeah, he has a story about he was traveling with a black evangelist and how he like saw racism at his work because the sheriff pulled him over and threw him in jail with his black evangelical friend, and he got to experience what people of color got to experience, a little tiny bit of it. And I will say that social justice movement is a model of empathy, but without Christ it is empty, and what can happen is it just becomes a yelling echo chamber. Or we get the Antifa movement, and this is what I'm saying, we get the Antifa movement, which uses violence to answer empathy, which just wants rights for people who experience true suffering. And I think what happens is the social moment, you see it's like a lot of this anger, because truly that's how our culture just knows how to, a lot of our cultures, how they respond in anger. And I think the anger could be justified, but it is empty because it doesn't have something outside of it to refer back to. And the thing is John MacArthur will, at least how I understand it, if he ever sees, oh, if I'm wrong, you could correct me, however you see it. But how you're seeing it is you keep church separate from politics. And what's interesting is that in the book of Luke, the church got to create this amazing movement where people gave away everything. You have this part where this widow, who is part of a different ethnic than the other widow, she actually calls out of injustice, of how her people was getting overlooked. And what they did is they actually, by the Spirit of God, they actually called someone into position to answer this injustice. And I truly believe why Luke will give us this picture of this amazing movement is that is like it in its perfection of engaging our politics. Was we have politicians, a majority of our politicians do make some sort of faith to Christianity belief, and we get to call them out on that. And even today, being representative democracy, there is nothing wrong with calling out the politics. And actually, being politic is, everyone is engaging in politics, as it means to advocate for a higher idea of good. And when you look at the post, he talks about kind of like it's, here, I'll just quote it. Today, critical race theory, feminism, intersectional theory, LGBT advocacy, progressive immigration policies, animal rights, and other left-wing political causes are all activity vying for evangelical acceptance under the rubric of social justice. And I truly think that we could easily, the right wing, I guess you could say, he's left wing, the right wing. It's very easy to just lodge these into kind of political idea space or into like theories, when really the heart of social justice is under the model of empathy which Christ has given us, and which then that model of empathy, yes, it doesn't have Christ in it, but yet it's still the model of empathy, and we can still hear that heart. And by absolutely dismissing it, especially in that title, you're doing a disservice. You're doing a disservice to you calling people to Christ, which are just generally just calling for rights, just calling for better treatment of others. It's interesting when there's people not of faith calling for the empathy model, calling for better treatment of others. We, the church, myself, Christian, we get to love and engage the other because what Christ has done first. And so there is a true power in that. I don't have to sway left or to the right because of what Christ has already done for me. He has experienced cosmic suffering for me. He has pictured the perfect idea, the perfect space for selfless suffering. If you want to, again, Old Testament was theocracy. That means it was a government. At God as the head, so whatever God said, it kind of ruled it. And you still have a lot of social systems happening, like the year of Jubilee every 50 years. All the land was brought back to the tribes. If you sold any land, it was brought back to your family, brought back to your tribe. You weren't allowed to, your fields, you had to leave the outside of it, around the edges. You don't pick them, so that people who needed food can just walk by and pick it. And there was rules about so there's no exploitations on both ends. And the problem is the Pharisees at the time learned to go to the extreme extent for their own selfishness, when Jesus kept bringing it to it about the heart of loving God and loving people and about himself. And that is what the Bible is about. That is, Christ is about glorifying for God and loving your neighbor as yourself. Thank you for this moment to hear me out. John MacArthur, if you ever get a chance to hear me, I would love to have this conversation with you. I enjoy your work. I have your commentary on my Bible. I have your commentary on my cell phone app, and I greatly enjoy you explain what's going on at the time. And I am Reformed, so I hold to a very sovereign view of God. But when it comes to contextualization of Scripture for today, I think you missed the point, my friend. Well, everyone have a great day. Grace of Christ be upon you.